Hello and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. Thanks for joining me. I'm recording this on the last day of 2022, and that's because we're gearing up for Jamuary 2023. And Jamuary, which you may have heard about if you've been listening to the podcast or following my work, Jamuary is a challenge to make a new piece of music every single day during the month of January. So the idea is just to create something. It can be really simple and not very complicated at all. It could be a full song, whatever you want, whatever you have time for. The idea is just that you show up every day and try to make something new. It's a chance to push yourself a little bit, to see if you can actually do it, to see what you can get done in these 31 days in January by just showing up every single day. Even if you only play an instrument and share that, or if you just sing a melody you came up with, or play with a few toys, make a little loop in your DAW, it doesn't matter. You've completed the challenge. You've made it. The idea is to show up, make something, and share it. You can use the hashtag Jamuary2023. It's pretty big on Instagram, and we also have that in our music production club. So if you're a member of the music production club, in our Discord, we have Jamuary, and you can follow along there. There's going to be lots of people participating. And it's very encouraging to have some group of people, find some people that you can share this with so that you can motivate each other. Even if it's just following a hashtag, comment on other people's posts, and just get involved and follow certain people and see what they're doing, and it'll motivate you. It's kind of like when you go to the gym and you want to quit the workout, but everyone else around you is still going, and you say, well, I can't stop because they're still going. It's the same thing with Jamuary. You get that inspiration from others. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that you'll try it out. So in this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about maybe a few lessons that we've learned through doing Jamuary, maybe give you some encouragement in case you're on the fence about it. And there's also 3 books I read this year that really helped as far as productivity goes and being inspired and getting to work. So I'll mention those as well. But the idea here is really just to pump you up and hopefully get you involved in Jamuary. Just imagine if you made a new piece of music every day for a month, how far ahead you'd be, what ideas would come out. These are ideas you probably never would have if you didn't sit down to make the music. So I think considering the long-term goal here of just getting better and producing more music is a nice way to motivate yourself to get started with Jamuary. I think there were some pretty wise words said by Nate, aka Sicken, within our Music Production Club Discord, where he's really excited about Jamuary. He makes, it seems like, a new piece of music every day anyway, and he's always sharing it. So he's excited to participate in this and see everyone else going, and he just offered some words that I thought I'd share because I think they're pretty wise. He says, have fun, try something new and weird. This is a great excuse to try out new things, to do things you've never done before. A lot of the things I've done in Jamuary were experiments with scales I never used before, or trying out instruments or presets I've never used before, or just to get to know certain pieces of gear a little better. 2 years ago, 3 years now, I guess, in 2020's Jamuary, I did a bunch of songs that were ambient tracks on the OP1. I had fun the first night, so I did it 3 more nights in a row. And because of that, I was able to put together a few tracks. And by, I guess, the end of February, I had an ambient EP called A Journey Inward. So it was kind of cool that that wouldn't have happened if I didn't do the Jamuary challenge and if I wasn't trying to make something out of just a few jams and trying something new. Sicken also says, don't judge yourself against others, which I think is another great piece of advice. There's no sense in comparing what you do to somebody else. We're all unique individuals. We all have different skills and talents. We all have different amounts of time, different experience on different pieces of gear. So we're all going to make something different and unique. So embrace your own uniqueness, your own weirdness. Let that be what shines through during this month and explore it and see what you can use to your advantage about your particular style, your shortcomings, and your strengths. He also said that the only person you should really be competing against is yourself. And I think that's a nice way to look at it too. All you want to do is show up and make something and try to get a little better along the way. Inevitably, you will. You'll learn things. You'll figure things out. You'll learn how to work faster. There'll be days when you don't have a lot of time and you'll push through and you'll find a way to get it done and you'll get something out of that. You'll mess up. You'll make bad music and you'll learn something from that too. All you really have to worry about is getting there, showing up. It's not a competition. It's not a sport. There's no winner. If you participate at all, you are a winner. There's a few things I thought I'd say about the challenge to kind of get us all ready, things I'm trying to keep in mind. And they come from a couple books I read this year. And they might be the 3 most important books I read. I'm not sure, but at least gearing up for Jamuary, I think they are. One is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it talks all about forming habits. And that's really what we're trying to do with Jamuary is get this a habit, make this a routine. One of the nice things about doing it every single day is you never have to ask yourself, am I going to make music today? Am I going to do this today? The answer is always yes, you are. You're going to do it. So there's no moment of trying to decide if now's the time. Should I do it? Am I going to do it today? You're just going to do it. That's a big part of it. Another major point in that book is keeping the goals kind of small at first. You want to just do a little bit before you start making the habit built. You want to build the habit first before you start building upon it. So showing up and just making something real quick is totally fine. The good thing about doing that is even if you only spend a few minutes making something, or you just make a loop, or you just play an instrument a little bit, you're getting into the practice of doing it. You're learning how to do it. Your setup is already there, ready to go, which means it'll probably be ready to go tomorrow. You'll have done a lot of micro things that make it a lot easier to do it the next day. Another book I read this year that I completely loved was called Someday is Today by Matthew Dix. And one of the big things that I took away from that book was this idea that we should treat every minute equally. So if we get a couple minutes here or there throughout our day, we shouldn't just throw it away because we think we need a half hour, an hour, or 2 hours to do something. You might come upon days where you're only going to have 10 minutes to make something. So don't decide that it's not worthy to do it because it's only 10 minutes. Make the most of 10 minutes, whatever you can get done in those few minutes. And it might even be that your jams for the day are scattered throughout the day, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there. That's fine too. If you find 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and you can accumulate a half hour throughout the day, that's enough time to do something. And I'd also like to mention Stephen Pressfield's book, Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be, which is all about putting yourself in the situation to become the thing you want to become. And if you're into making music and you want to be a songwriter or a music producer, you're going to have to put your ass in the seat or wherever you go to make your music. Jamuary is an excuse to practice that every day. Just getting there is a big part of it. It's probably the hardest challenge of it all. I've heard people say the heaviest weight to lift at the gym is the front door, meaning that's the hardest thing to do is just walk in the door. And once you're there, things are a little bit easier. I think there's some truth to that. So that's a big part of the book, and I think it applies pretty well here for Jamuary. It will be challenging. That's part of it, so expect that and be ready for it. Some days it might come easy, and other days you're not going to know how you're going to get it done. If you can power through those days, that gives you a new kind of strength. Those days when you don't think you're going to make it or you don't think you have the time and you manage to pull it off, it's very empowering. That's when you really win. Because then on the easier days, well, I did it on that hard day. And sometimes you're so strapped for time, you don't even have time to decide if what you're making is any good. And I really love that feeling because you're just making something. You're not responsible for how good it comes out. You're just making it. And it's a fun way to create. And it's so fast that sometimes you get lucky and your musical taste comes through and you wind up making decisions that you like in music. It's not such a bad thing to just go without any concern of how it comes out. Some days you're just going to have to work that way. And if you're not sure if you're ready to start, maybe you don't know if you have the right gear or not, don't even worry about that stuff. Just start. Who cares? Even if you have to just hum a melody into your phone and post that, that's fine. That counts. We can accept that as work. You thought about making music. Of course, you might want to do more than that on a regular basis, but just start wherever you can. Nothing's ever going to be perfectly aligned for you to do what you want to do. You're not going to always have everything you need. A lot of being creative and being an artist is about finding solutions when you don't have the necessary means to do something, to just do it anyway, to figure out a way. And a lot of times the music you make under those situations is very creative and becomes very exciting. It's a challenge and a puzzle to solve. So don't wait for everything to be perfect, because if you do, you're going to wait forever. And to that point, I think it was a quote from Jim Rohn that said something to the effect of, the longer you wait to do something, the less likely you are to do it. So the more you put something off, the less likely you are to do it. So if you decide that you're not ready to start on January 1st and you need to wait till like the 3rd or the 4th, 3rd and the 4th rolls around, maybe you can't do it that day. Now it's the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and you might start to say, well, I already missed a week. It's too late to start, which is totally not true. You could start on January 31st if you want, and then you showed up one day and you had one day of making music that you never would have had. But the more we put it off, the less likely we are to do it. It's easier to find an excuse, and the habit starts to become not doing it and finding a way out of doing it. So just go, just start. Once you start, you've started. That's the hardest part. So just get it going. Consider the person you want to become. Who do you want to be? What do you want as an identity, as a musician, as a songwriter, as a producer? The only way to get there is to do the sorts of things that those people do. So figure out what it is that they do and start doing those things, and pretty soon you become that person. Jamuary is a great excuse to do that. If you want to be someone that makes music, you have to make music. So you have to sit down and do it. You got to do the work. And this is a daily reminder to just do that as best you can. Now, this all sounds really strict and it can be overwhelming, and that's not the point either. It's not to stress you out too much. So I've got this kind of mantra I'm going to go by this year called don't lose twice. So I'm going to say to myself, don't lose twice, which means if I have a day where I can't do it, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm not going to get upset and depressed and quit. If I let those feelings get a hold of me, say it's day 4 and I just can't do it, I say, oh man, 3 days in, I already missed day 4. That's a really bad place to be. Instead, I'm going to say, don't lose twice. So if I have to miss January 4th, I got to just make sure I get back on January 5th. And that is going to be my mark of success if I can just not lose twice. And maybe you apply that to yourself too. That would mean that even if you missed every other day but picked yourself up the next day, you still made music for 15 or 16 days in January, which might be a lot more than you would have done otherwise. So if we can just adopt this mindset of not losing twice, we can get a lot done and it's still a victory. But if we force ourselves that we have to complete it and we put ourselves under all that pressure, we might get disappointed if we just do 29 out of 31 days. So I'm going to go with don't lose twice this year. Maybe you want to try that too. Just that you're going to show up, and if you miss a day, that's no problem. Dust yourself off and just get going the next day. I think it's a good idea to have a little bit of a plan of the type of work you want to do. It might be the kinds of gear you want to use, the types of scales or the musical genres you want to make within. It helps you get started and just eliminate a few decisions before you actually start making music. But if you want a little extra help, if you want, say, like a musical personal trainer to root you on, I recommend my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer. It's 365 daily activities. They're about 5 minutes each, and they just get you going each day. So it starts on day 1. It doesn't have to be January 1st, it's whichever day. But you can use this to just get going. You can open up to either the first page and start from there and go through the whole month of January that way, or you can just kind of flip open wherever you want and find an exercise that you can do for that day. I think it's going to be a really great tool for just getting going when you don't know where to start, and sometimes to force you out of your comfort zone to do something you wouldn't normally do. In fact, it was really a big motivation of me to finish editing this book and release it before January so that we could use it for January. And I know I'm going to probably refer to it a lot because there's going to be days where I sit down and I'm not going to know what to do. But opening up to an idea and starting from there is a really helpful way to get going. So maybe check out the 5-Minute Music Producer if you're looking for ways to get going. I'd love for you to see it, and I really do appreciate any support. If you're looking for the social kind of motivation there, our music production club is a great place to get that because our Discord is going to be pretty hopping with Jamuary stuff. Last year, there were hundreds of posts from people, just all kinds of music made. And it was always very inspiring. And there were days I wasn't going to make music. I'd kind of given up. And I saw the people that were still going. I said, I got to do it. And it got me through. And sometimes the music I really liked was the result. So if you want to be part of that, the Music Production Club's a great way. It comes also with the 5-Minute Music Producer book. You get Ableton Live Packs, sample packs, you get educational courses, and it's actually cheaper than the book itself. It's only $6 a month. The book is $8 if you buy it from me directly. So you get all of that for less. It's really my way to try to make my work as accessible to as many people as possible. So that's the Music Production Club. You can check that out if you like. And just remember, what we're trying to do here is build consistency, to build habits. Every single time you show up and you do it, it's like doing a rep at the gym or something. You get stronger, you get better at it. And you also tell yourself that you're the kind of person that makes music every day, or you're the kind of person that makes music on a regular basis, at least. That you're the kind of person that shows up and gets the job done, even if you're not feeling motivated right away. But the secret to motivation, in my opinion, is not feeling motivated, then getting to work. It's getting to work so you get motivated. Once you start, you then find motivation. So don't rely on that feeling, that lightning bolt of inspiration to strike. Just get to work, and I bet you, since you like making music, since you find it fascinating and fun and challenging, I bet something will inspire you within the first few minutes, and you'll be on your way. So the trick is to just show up and get to work. I hope you'll join us, whether you come through the Music Production Club, whether you're doing it on Instagram with hashtags, or whether you're just doing it for yourself. It's such a good exercise. I've grown so much from it. I'm equally parts excited and terrified of it because I know how hard it is, how much work it is, but that's the point. It's like that hard workout that you have to do that you know will get stronger afterwards. So pay attention to just how you're going to feel after you do it each day. And when you complete each day, pat yourself on the back because you did it. You showed up and you made it happen. Take a little break and then get ready for tomorrow. And if you miss tomorrow, just don't lose twice. Come back the next day and do the best you can. Even if you show up for one day, you've made progress. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a great year for the podcast. So many great guests, so many great episodes. It's been so fun. We just crossed the 300 mark, and I really do appreciate all of you for listening. Thanks, and have a great day. Good luck with January. Happy New Year.